one can not like a pedal for oneself and not like the things that are going on with it and still think it's a good idea for other people and still think it's actually a good thing. And I want to talk to that because I put something in the group about Wampler's new what the heck is the name of it? It's not
I
important.
don't
It's some
even
drive
remember.
that has the Tumnus and the Pinnacle, which are two great pedals, right? I mean, we could agree on that. Um, the Pinnacle being a Marshall in the box, and the Tumnus being a one of the best, right up there with the Archer and other clones.
Yeah, I've
So
owned the Pinnacle. I'll comment briefly. The Pinnacle is basically a JCM 800, maybe with an extra gain stage. It's not vintage Marshall because they have another pedal
right,
that does that. It's the Plexi Drive, but
that's the Plexi. So anyway, it seems to me like a great idea. The person that it was made for, I can't remember his name. Didn't the name didn't really shock me or interest me, but um, it said he had done some changes. I got to be honest with you. Some of the changes that he made, it's like I was looking at a joystick today, and I want to put this into perspective. I was looking at a joystick today, and the person said, "Yeah, I like to put this function on this, this button,
they
and
were
this function on
preference
this button."
oriented.
So
That's somebody's
yeah,
signature pedal,
and
though, right?
right, it is a signature pedal. And the thing is, if you look at the group, you'll see who it was. Um, and I I said to myself, I said, "Yeah, that's like a signature guitar. It's not for me. It's for you." He wanted the center of one of the dials to.
It's the Gearbox, and that's Andy Wood's signature overdrive.
There you go, Andy Woods. Thank you. Still don't know who he is, but not important really. It doesn't matter if I know who he is. He doesn't know who I am either. Um, so the point that I'm making though is that yeah, Andy wanted certain functions to do this and so on and so forth. Now, if you know anything about um, the way that the Tumnus works, there's two Tumnuses. I have the Tumnus Deluxe or the
Yeah, you
Tumnus
got
Max, whatever you want.
dual pedal with extra
Yeah, the
function,
big
and yeah.
one, and it's got six knobs or five knobs instead of three, and more switching and everything else. But what's important is that this person had this pedal designed for them.
Mm-hmm.
They improved the pedicle for them. They improved the Tumnus
Yeah,
circuitry for them. Now
debatably
that said,
improved. They tailored it, and there really isn't an improved.
right,
So here's the issue and the distinction of all this:
d-
good or better, or that whole thing, like better or worse. And here's the reality:
right,
there is no better or worse. This shit's
nope,
all subjective. It's
that's right.
all subjective. That's probably the name of this
That's right.
episode. It's all subjective.
Mhm.
Because even though we use terms like "this is better," I
Yep,
think what we really mean is this is better at doing this thing that I'm doing with it right now.
right.
Because like nobody's gonna buy I'm trying to think of like a metal zone and expect to get blues rock out of it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. As a matter of fact, I heard something Metal Zone related. I'll talk to that in a second. But so that's really what I was getting at is it isn't for me. The Tumnus, I so the reason I bought the Tumnus, I'll let everybody know, is I wanted a clone, right? I wanted one. But I wanted a clone that was close. So it was between the Tumnus, the Archer, and I can't remember. Oh, Mjolnir.
Yeah, the Molnir.
So I had those three. Those were my three tops, and I actually was going to get the Mjolnir. Right? That was my top pick at first. I watched a few videos, and then I watched. It just so happened. I don't know if it's fate or whatever. Kismet. Anderton's had a shootout of 10 different clans. You saw it,
Yeah.
and there was a real clan in there. And guess what? The only pedal that beat the clan in the clone
Beat.
thing was. Yeah, Beat. And then it's Pete Honore, who admitted he didn't have a lot of actual clone experience and more clone experience.
Well, I'm
That
just
said,
saying it beat, but that just depends on user preference.
that's exactly right. And what they had set up in the place at the time, the guitar he was using,
Exactly.
the rig he
Exactly.
was plugged into, so on and so forth. But anyway, and it wasn't it wasn't like, oh, the Tumnus was 10 times better than all the other. No, it was like, eh. and it was the three biggie or the three big clones were the three I picked. And then there was the actual clone. But the Tumnus was the only one that he picked above the clone that he thought might be the clone.
Well,
So
the Mjolnir, who makes that? Do you remember?
that's by what's that company that names everything weird? Um, it starts with an M. Um, Hold on, because the spelling is so bad as far as Mjolnir goes. Um,
Mythos.
Mythos, thank you. I knew it started with an M.
I don't know why I was thinking about JHS with that, but I knew like JHS
Yeah,
doesn't
well,
make clones
yeah,
anymore because
no,
they have a deal with Bill Finnegan. They made him for a while Bill couldn't, and then
right.
yeah.
And so they don't make a clone, not anymore, at least.
The Archer. Here's the funny part: the Archer is like made the KTR, or the people that make Archer, the J Rocket, made the
Yep,
the first run of
made the
KTRs,
that's right.
which according to Bill Finnegan,
And
that's a clone.
that is a clone.
Identical to the original clone, according to him.
And yep. And you can't say that the Archer isn't really damn close.
I'd say
I mean,
sonically
really.
identical, because
Yeah.
obviously they're using
Yeah, different,
surface mount
different,
components rather than through hole. And
right. Which is something he wanted to do for the KTR.
right.
So, my point is, I don't think that I think that what happens is in our forum even is that people took that as in I didn't think it was a good pedal. And
Mhm.
I was just, it's not exciting me. But I put it in there, and the last thing I said, you know how they always say everything before the but doesn't count? So I have a but. So all that stuff that I said before it shouldn't count, right? That's what's supposed to be. And then at the end I said,
Depends how much you piss
if you
people
don't
off.
have these pedals in your rig already, or if you don't have these pedals in, your arsenal, you may want to consider this
Yeah,
pedal.
that might
And
be
I
a
put
cool device.
the Yeah, and I put the darn link in there. Why would I put the link in there and say you might want to add this if I didn't think it was a good idea? I didn't think that you should check it out.
The only issue I had with the way that it was presented was that my thought on this was because it was like, oh
And it's
well,
fine.
it had been improved because even Wampler sort of said we improved the circuit, and I don't think he was necessarily talking about the controls, and that's what the way I took that. But then, so I see this thing and you post it, and I'm like, well, yeah, it may not sound any different than your combination in your house to your specific rig, and like, but here's the key takeaway from that. I'm making a commentary about people who buy pedals based on videos.
Right.
I have done this, and I have been sorely disappointed multiple times.
Yeah.
And you just have to realize, like, your specific rig, also play style is important in that, and just understanding that those are often done in the best of circumstances. And I
Hmm.
am absolutely certain there are times where they are fake, which I won't go into too much on the fakery side, but I know that there's been at least one pedal builder who has been accused of using an amplifier in place of his amp in the box pedal and never answered for it.
Yeah.
Um, so he's sold 1 billion of them since. So I have to imagine they're not bad or anything, but it's just, it was like somebody accused him of that and then he never answered it, which is okay. Cause like at some point you got to ignore the trolls. Right.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but it was a
I'm one.
weird situation. And then there's been some other sketchy behavior in that past too, which I think may have brought the troll out, but also giving credence to the fact that maybe he should have answered for it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so all that aside, once you realize like the only way you're going to be able to evaluate a pedal is to actually use it and play it, that was where it basically ended for me. Because I looked at it and I said, well, the YouTube clips don't sound much different than the original clips do.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's probably because whatever improvements they made to the circuit are so minor. You'd have to A/B the pedal against each other
It's
to really see what
yeah.
the improvement is. But there are people that chase that one to 1.5% difference, thinking
Yeah.
that 1.5% is going to make them sound that much better, and it's just not realistic.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I was going to get to is that these are improvements. And again, Wampler himself said that there were things that he wanted to make changes with the Pinnacle over the years. So it's fine, and he's doing refinements to certain places. And you got to remember, he's thinking now. Now the Pinnacle is sitting in a pedal next to a Tumnus. Not everybody has a Pinnacle and a Tumnus, right? So
Right.
now he's thinking, okay, Pinnacle, Tumnus, Tumnus, Pinnacle, depending on how you wire it, because you wire it just like the Paisley Deluxe. You
Even
wire
just
it.
being able to adjust the impedance between the two pedals so that they talk
Yeah,
properly. And I know people are like, oh, well, manufacturers will automatically set their impedance. No, that's not true.
no,
Oftentimes, they're not even paying attention to what the output impedance is, and that can have a massive effect on the input impedance. Now,
right.
I've talked so much smack about Rig Doctor on this show before, but I watched a video with him doing an interview with Paul Rivera today, and in that conversation, Mason talks about input output impedance
Hmm.
and line level versus
Yep.
instrument level, and talking about the conversion processes and the challenges that that creates. And both, and of course, Paul Rivera, I have deep respect for. He
Yeah.
goes on at length about how hard it is to design a circuit with a buffer that can accommodate that, and how important it is that we do that in order to get the best possible goods out of our stuff. And
Exactly.
now, the funny part is, I think Paul still sort of comes from the school of, let's make the impedance hi-fi style instead of let's make your guitar sound like it was supposed to into a fuzz phase kind of thing, because that's obviously an impedance mismatch that creates some of that, and that's
Yep.
that's a weird situation to find yourself in. But I just thought it was rather interesting that that's a preference thing, right? Like going back to this idea of preferences and how your preferences, your tastes preface all this, and then
That-
modifying that particular circuit so that it would work with another circuit, or even just upgrading the components. Maybe they're using the same IC that's in their rat clone, you know.
Right. And a thing I noticed about Andy Woods, right? That's who it was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a thing I noticed about Andy Woods and what he was using when he did the demo of it was pretty much Telecasters, one with wide range pickups and one with um, or humbuckers, and
Mm-hmm.
one with the regular thing. So I think it lends itself to the Fender community, which there's nothing wrong with that. Eventually they'll want to grow up and play Gibsons.
Oh my
But no,
god.
I do that. I got a friend of mine. I do that to him all the time. I'm like, one day you'll become a man and you'll play a Gibson. But anyway,
Yeah.
so now it,
Is that what it
uh,
takes?
yeah, no, I'm joking, obviously, but so I noticed that it kind of lent itself in that respect. But believe it or not, I thought, okay, then definitely when Wampler does it, he's going to pull out one of his high end. No, he played it with an Epiphone Casino. Sounded great. So again, but of course, he used his Bravado amplifier, Bravado,
Yeah, which is basically just a
which
deluxe
is
reverb type of thing. It's not.
and
There's nothing
really
special
awesome.
about those amps. They're just a flat,
No, yep,
pedal amp.
flat response, which is what that's designed to do.
Well, they're not.
It's a
They're
really,
not. I want to be clear. They're not flat response, but they're like a
yeah,
pedal
flat.
platform. So they're meant to sound
Right.
like a clean amplifier, basically.
Yeah, they're meant to sound like whatever you put into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, all right. So that was my first thing. I just wanted to tell everybody that I still think it's a great idea. I still think it's a great idea for a pedal. It's just not something that I would be excited to put on my board.